It's Thursday, November 19th, and this is now on HNN.
At times it can get frustrating as mayor.
More than a month after the tourism relaunch, the county mayors say the state's pre-travel testing program is flawed.
This is deeply concerning.
We're just now learning of a new important recommendation from federal health officials ahead of the Thanksgiving holiday. I'm Laura Podesta with the latest on the coronavirus surge nationwide.
Let me give you an idea of how screwed up the FAA has been.
Should small children be allowed to fly on the lap of an adult? Our travel expert has strong opinions about this.
How ludicrous is that?
These stories plus will explain new technology that's hoping to save the world's coral reefs. That's coming up on This Is Now. New today, state officials say a Hawaii inmate being held at the Saguaro Correctional Center in Arizona has died from the coronavirus. We are told he was between 60 and 69 years old. No identity has been released. At last report, 138 prisoners were infected and 4 were in the hospital.
Hey everyone, Ashley and Jonathan, thank you so much for watching This Is Now. Let's start with our coronavirus coverage now. It's been more than a month since the relaunch of tourism in Hawaii, but the county mayors say there are flaws with the state's pre-travel testing program. Kauai Mayor Derek Kawakami has proposed changes to the program, but he says it's likely Governor Ige will reject those proposals. Here is Chelsea Davis with more.
A month ago, Kauai had no active cases, but the mayor says since the start of the Safe Travels program, at least 9 travelers boarded flights to Kauai with pending results, only to learn they were positive on arrival. And he says at least 15 tested negative before departure, then positive after arriving. The mayor says it proves the state's pre-travel testing program is flawed.
At times it can get frustrating as mayor because it feels that I'm being stepped in front of as far as being able to govern and lead this island, which I believe there's nobody, at least amongst the mayors, the governor, lieutenant governor. I think I can make the case that I know Kauai the best and I should be able to lead this island.
Kawakami sent 2 proposals to the governor. One would require a second negative test 3 days after arrival. The other is to require travelers to upload their pre-travel test prior to departure, meaning no one can fly with pending results. It's something the other mayors agree on.
I have to say as mayor, this is deeply concerning, particularly as we see the surge, wildfire spread of the virus on the continent. And therefore we have risk because we don't know if the pre-test program is actually working.
Maui County Mayor Mike Victorino said he asked the governor for similar proposals, but was turned down.
From the beginning, I said that I would wanted to have had every entry into the state must have a COVID-free negative test before entering our state. Now, I've been told that's unconstitutional, but I still want to see that done.
Hawaii County Mayor Harry Kim supports the proposals too and wants people traveling for essential work or activities to provide a negative COVID test as well.
But they're doing their business, including medical, including construction, including harbors, you name it. But they're obviously just as vulnerable to the virus and just as vulnerable of spreading it.
Victorino said they have sent back more than 150 travelers who arrived on Maui with a negative COVID test, but not from a trusted partner. So he says they are working on adding more verified partners to the list. Chelsea Davis, Hawaii News Now.
The U.S. has reached another grim milestone, more than 250,000 coronavirus deaths. More than 19,000 of those happened in this month. Laura Podesta has the very latest developments from across the mainland.
The CDC is strongly pushing against traveling this Thanksgiving holiday as the coronavirus rages out of control.
The safest way to celebrate Thanksgiving this year is at home with the people who live in your household.
More than 250,000 people in the U.S. have now died from COVID-19. More than 19,000 so far this month. There's been more than 1 million cases nationwide in the past week.
The increase in cases over the last week is really alarming for all of us.
In Idaho, hospitals are nearing capacity. Doctors there are concerned they'll soon have to ration hospital beds.
We may be facing that scenario in December.
In an unprecedented move, 100 hospitals teamed up for a public service announcement, pleading with the American public to wear masks.
Schools are safe! Schools are safe!
In New York City, parents and children protested the city's decision to switch the public school system to all remote learning.
Our most vulnerable kids need schools to be open.
Parents point out that the infection rate in city schools is well below 1%. But Mayor Bill de Blasio defended the decision.
We can't just stand pat with a strategy that worked before when conditions are changing. We need to reset the equation.
He says rising cases in the city and the country made the switch necessary. Laura Podesta, CBS News, New York.
The Hawaii Tourism Authority is working to extend the state's pre-travel testing program to South Korea, Taiwan, and Canada. Canadian visitors will soon be allowed to skip quarantine in Hawaii with a negative coronavirus test. After Japan, Canada is Hawaii's second largest international market.
Hopefully by the end of this week, the announcement will be made that we have now solidified the agreements with Hawaii and Canada with the airlines, and Air Canada and WestJet will be our two preferred partners. And they have now reached out and got preferred LAWs across Canada for the passengers.
There's still no timeline to reopen travel from Taiwan and South Korea. Hawaiian Airlines plans to restart flights to Seoul next week. The state has a similar travel partnership in place with Japan, but the country is seeing a record number of cases for a second day in a row. Over 2,300 new infections were reported today and 2,200 yesterday. The country's prime minister says Japan is on maximum alert. Passengers from Japan can skip Hawaii's 14-day quarantine with a negative test from a trusted lab partner, but they must quarantine when they return to Japan.
Well, on Thursdays, we typically check in with our very opinionated travel expert, Peter Greenberg. And today, he's not talking about the pandemic. He's got something to say about small kids flying on the laps of adults. Here's what he had to say.
Let me give you an idea of how screwed up the FAA has been. All right? Anybody out there who is a parent of a child under the age of 2, you know that when you fly with your child, you're allowed under current FAA regulations to hold that child in your lap. This is stupid and ludicrous. The NTSB investigated dozens of survivable crashes, hard landings, aborted takeoffs, where the G-forces were extreme, but people could survive. And guess what they determined in every one of those cases? That parents who were holding their lap kids were unable to maintain their grasp on their kids. The kids became missiles and were either seriously injured or killed. And in every one of those cases that the NTSB did the work on, they made an urgent safety recommendation to the FAA. Why did they do that? Because they went to their testing labs and they tested baby crash test dummies at high G-forces that were survivable, and using weights of the dummies at under 20 pounds, 20 to 40 pounds, and over 40 pounds of kids who would be presumably under the age of 2. And what did they find? That without a proper restraint system, exactly the same thing happened that happened in the real crashes. They didn't do well. So they recommended to the FAA an urgent safety recommendation that the airlines be required to provide restraint devices for kids, rear-facing restraint devices for children under the age of 2 who were less than 20 pounds, forward-facing restraint devices for kids under the age of 2 between 20 and 40 pounds, and a regular seatbelt for any of these kids over 40 pounds. And when the NTSB, which is not a regulatory agency, makes a recommendation, the FAA has 90 days in which to respond. So now let me tell you what the FAA did, and let me ask you the rhetorical question, does this make you angry? The FAA waited 89 days to respond, and on the 89th day, they responded to say, we're going to study it. And that constituted an acceptable response under the codes. Well, the FAA actually did study it. They went to their testing labs in New Jersey, where they have the facilities to do this, and they got their own baby crash test dummies and did the exact same test the NTSB did. And guess what happened? the exact same results. Now the FAA was confronted with incontrovertible evidence, plus a recommendation of restraint systems that were easily obtainable and they could be implemented. So what did the FAA finally do? This was their response. And by the way, I'm not paraphrasing this, I've memorized this. The FAA, first of all, came out with a statement that said, we're aware of these crashes, we're aware of the damage caused and the incidents of survival and those that didn't, and we want everybody to be responsible here. We want parents to be responsible. But we're not going to require the airlines to provide these systems, because if they did, the airlines would only raise airfares and people who would otherwise fly would drive and be killed in automobile accidents. How ludicrous is that? And my response immediately was to that then, as it is now, is when I want the FAA to talk about highway safety, I'll ask them. That's not their job. Their job is airline safety. And guess what? They never implemented it. It's still the case today.
The first phase of Oahu's disposable foodware ordinance goes into effect on January 1st. But as Mark Carpenter reports, it's a major adjustment for businesses who are still wrestling with the financial fallout from the pandemic.
Alicia's Market in Kalihi is one of the many local businesses affected by Bill 40. For example, they need to phase out the poke bowl container and the plastic bag that it comes in, significantly affecting expenses.
Paper bags are almost double what it costs for a plastic bag, and poke containers, the cost of containers, it's not even near what the cost of plastic containers are. It's almost double too. And they're not even as good. And a lot of them are lined with plastic on the inside, which you can't use.
While trying to recover from COVID-19's impact, Alicia's is now bracing for the challenge of overhauling its distribution model. Bill 40, also referred to as Ordinance 1930, means all plastic products from containers to utensils to straws must go, and alternatives will only be offered by request. Chris Camp agrees with the ordinance's goal of helping the environment, but says it puts local businesses in a bind and also overlooks how items arrive from out of state.
We can't use plastic, but yet everything that comes into us comes in plastic. Beef is covered in plastic when it comes in. You know, when you get a box of pork, there's plastic in between each piece, and it's not like we're using that coming in like that.
This is happening all over the United States. It's happening right here in Hawaii already. It's happening internationally.
Nicole Chatterson, head of Zero Waste Oahu, recently hosted an event centered on how businesses can implement the change. She understands the increased cost of eliminating plastic, but says handing out utensils only when requested will offset the extra expense.
If you give away half as many of your compostable utensils, you're back at the same price point you were in giving away the cheaper single-use plastic utensils.
The city is holding a virtual public hearing at the end of the month, and businesses can apply for an exemption from the ordinance based on no available alternatives or significant hardship. Applications will be available at opala.org. Mark Carpenter, Hawaii News Now.
And we just got those numbers in from the State Department of Health. Now, because of the 2-day delay, these numbers are from Tuesday. So 107 new cases reported today, 12 on the Big Island, 4 on Kauai, 9 on Maui, 75 on Oahu, and 7 out of state. No new deaths being reported today.
And we're constantly monitoring live video feeds coming into the H&N Digital Center, and I wanted to show you guys this. Look at the nation's capital this evening. Can you just take that in for a moment? Whew, I love it.
Cotton candy skies.
Yeah, our weather's looking really nice too, folks. Let's turn it over to our good friend Guy with an update.
Aloha. On this Thursday, a drier air mass is moving in along with stronger trade winds. It's not totally dry. As you can see, a few spots have some light windward and Mauka showers. They'll be drying up later on today, probably by lunchtime, if not a little bit sooner than that. And the trade winds will be getting stronger today. They'll be running at about 10 to 20 miles an hour, but they will get stronger as we head into the weekend. And for today, with those nice breezy trade winds, we'll have lower humidity levels, lots of sunshine after the morning showers dry up. And the UV index is still high on the scale at about 6. Now, as far as the surf, it will be building this afternoon for north and west shores. And this swell, unlike the swell that's dropping off right now, will have more of a westerly component to it, and that's better. That means more spots will be working on north and west shores. Not a whole lot happening in town, and east shores will be building over the next several days. Maybe advisory level waves are due in to east shores over the weekend because of the building trade winds. So we've gotten really nice weather today and tomorrow, a few minor splashes, yes, and trade winds slowly getting stronger. We're expecting very windy conditions Saturday, Sunday, and Monday. And for Saturday and Sunday, look for an increase in those windward and Mauka showers. Leeward sides, not so much. Keep it here on Hawaii News Now. We'll have all your severe weather updates.
Coral bleaching is reaching dangerous levels around the world, and conservationists are racing to implement measures to mitigate continued loss. An international mapping partnership just launched new coral bleaching monitoring technology to support scientists in the fight to preserve the world's coral reefs. I had a chance to talk to the director of that project this morning. Very complicated stuff, but how does this technology work, the new mapping work? And you say it's coming from space.
Yeah. So we are part of a partnership called the Allen Coral Atlas, and one of our partners is the company called Planet. They used to be called Planet Labs, and they operate a series of satellites in orbit. They're small, they're about the size of a bread box, but there are hundreds of them. They're passing over Hawaii and all over the planet constantly, giving us a view of lands and seas every day. And the trick has been trying to figure out how to use that to see the corals down on the seafloor. So what we've done is we figured out some pretty interesting approaches that use, water physics and biology and all the knowledge and tactics that my team has with our partners to literally see through the seawater and see if these corals are getting whiter, if they're bleaching, that process that people may have noticed across the state, especially in 2015. We had a bit of it in 2019 where these corals turn white, and that's a bad sign when they do that. We want to know where that's happening. And so the satellites and the algorithms and the methods that we've developed allow us to punch through that seawater visually and see what's going on the seafloor.
Just in a nutshell, what is your biggest hope here with this project?
Okay, the hope with this project is two-level. We work in Hawaii. Many of us are, either from Hawaii or born and raised or whatever we are. So in my team, Hawaii is our epicenter of focus for developing these tools so that our managers and our conservation folks and our communities can be involved in the process of taking care of these coral reefs as we go through these marine heat waves, which are becoming more frequent. But at the same time, we're really focused on taking this technology worldwide. And so the project that we're in called the Allen Coral Atlas is allowing us to scale what we've invented here in the Hawaiian Islands globally. And over the year 2021, we'll be rolling this capability out to all coral reefs on the planet. So it's a two-level focus to ultimately help people to help reefs.
High-tech stuff there. We're going to stick with that theme of tech for our From the Feed segment. Time magazine just unveiled its latest issue. I love seeing these covers. So what they're talking about is its annual list of the 100 best inventions of the year. Among them, of the 2020 list, artificial intelligence, AI-powered beehive, I have to see that, running shoe made mostly of entirely natural materials like eucalyptus, castor bean oil, and sugarcane.
Interesting.
And new technology that made the vaccine so rapid to produce. The vaccine for COVID-19, that is.
And speaking of inventions, you guys, General Motors says a pending breakthrough in its battery chemistry will cut the price of its electric vehicles so they're around the same price as those powered by gasoline within 5 years. The technology also will increase the range per charge to as high as 450 miles. Company officials say a small electric SUV will cost under 30 grand, and they pledge to roll out a 30 battery powered models worldwide by 2025. Now, experts say the announcement illustrates how fast EV technology is moving and shows that it may become the primary fuel for transportation faster than expected.
I want to go electric, and that's what I've been waiting for, really.
Totally. Yeah, and diamonds usually take billions of years to form after carbon is crushed and heated far beneath the Earth's surface. Well, scientists now in Australia say they have sped up the diamond making process into just a matter of minutes. They're able to make the gemstones at room temperature by using high pressure instead of heat. And synthetic diamonds are not new. They've been created in labs since the 40s, but researchers were excited to create diamonds at room temperature, especially the Lons Delete diamond.
I'll get you a room temperature diamond.
Thanks.
Yeah, no problem.
They're probably really cheap too.
Yeah.
And Atlanta's newest high-rise building is apparently the tallest car vending machine in the country, according to Carvana. The online used car dealership has opened its flagship vending machine in Georgia's capital, and the machine stretches 12 stories high and can carry up to 43 vehicles at a time.
Whoa.
So customers just use the machine to purchase a vehicle and arrange for pickup in as little as 5 minutes. And so once you buy it, you have 7 days to return the car if you don't like it.
I've seen the commercials. I have not seen one in person.
Yeah.
It's pretty fascinating, especially the video we're watching right now. It truly is like a claw machine for cars.
I've seen parking structures like valet service do this.
And I've seen that in Japan as well. Totally.
Yeah. You guys, Thanksgiving, 1 week from today, and officials are asking you not to gather in large groups. Casey Lund has more.
A good afternoon here from the H&N Kitchen, and we're so fortunate to have Peter Oshiro from the Environmental Health Program and the Hawaii State Department of Health with us to talk a little bit about the Thanksgiving that we're all about to celebrate here. And Peter, what is the one thing that you want families to know as they prepare to enjoy the holiday?
Well, the best thing is to stay at home. You know, again, we don't want to restrict your activities, your holiday, but the main thing is the more people that you invite to your house, the greater your risk increases of contracting this disease. So the main thing is to stay within your bubble, stay within your household. If you do have to have people come over, mask up, keep social distancing, keep 6 feet apart, and use our beautiful weather to make sure that everybody's spaced apart.
I think that's the biggest takeaway.
Yeah.
You know, we live in Hawaii. We're so fortunate to live where we are. We can eat outdoors. And, you know, a lot of people obviously are upset about the fact that this Thanksgiving is going to look a little bit different. But we're trying to stay positive. And I want to show you something from the city and county of Honolulu. If you go to honolulu.gov, really easy to navigate. They have some different ideas for a different looking Thanksgiving. The potluck that's virtual, setting a menu, deciding who's cooking what. Everybody cooks their assigned dish at home, drops it off at the person's home, you know, like Uber Eats, safe and socially distant. And then you have a virtual setting. Now, the city and county also has a great resource here to volunteer. They've got a list of different organizations that you can volunteer for, and making sure that the other people have a good Thanksgiving meal at the Hawaii Food Bank. OurKapuna.com, another great resource where you can help some of the most vulnerable in our community celebrate Thanksgiving safely. And that's really what it's all about. It's not about the city and county or the state coming into your home and restricting your holiday. It's really about keeping the ones we care about, especially our kapuna, those vulnerable to the virus, as safe as possible. I'm Casey Lund, reporting for This Is Now.
Thank you, Casey. Some good news now. If all you want for Christmas is something new from Mariah Carey, listen up. She's getting really festive, as usual, this year with a brand new Christmas show. It's called Mariah Carey's Magical Christmas Special, and the event will feature guests including Jennifer Hudson, Ariana Grande, and Tiffany Haddish, and Jonathan and Ashley. No, maybe not. The special debuts on Apple TV December 4th.
I was hoping for another song.
Yeah, I can handle that too. Maybe she'll bust something out.
That's true.
We all remember what happened a few years ago at her holiday special.
Oh, that's right.
Yep, a little mic problem fail.
And a good news for those of you who love Charlie Brown this time of year, it's coming back to broadcast television. Woo-hoo! Initially, the classic Peanuts holiday specials were supposed to air on Apple's streaming service, and that sparked an outcry from people who are used to watching it on TV. So yesterday, Apple gave in and announced that it's teaming up with PBS for ad-free showings of the holiday specials. A Charlie Brown Thanksgiving will air November 22nd, and a Charlie Brown Christmas will be on December 13th. And all is well in the world again.
Good grief. That is what the holidays are about. That's going to do it for This Is Now, a special press conference with Mayor Caldwell coming up in just a few minutes.